some of the last minutes of today's session to answer the questions you may have. So before we start, I want to tell you a bit about Henry, who is our invited speaker for today. As I was saying, Henry works with Mastercard. He is a director of innovation and cybersecurity for Latin America and the Caribbean. And he has a long professional trajectory he will tell us more about, probably, but we are in the best hands. He's an expert who has been working for many years with the cybersecurity. From 2019, he has been uh, he studied electronic in Colombia, Santander. He's Colombian like me. He did a master in information technologies in OIB Business School in Madrid. He has worked as a business partner in Mexico, SSA, Spanish South America. He has led the CI technology, cyber technology, safety and APIs for Central America, South America, and Caribbean countries. And as I was saying, he's an expert in this matter. So any questions you might have on the subject, he will be able to solve it for us. And I promise you, we are in the best hands. Welcome, Henry. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with our network of women in Connect Americas. Thank you very much, Daniela. It is a great pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. For us in Mastercard, it is very important to support not only women, but entrepreneur women who are nowadays leading medium-sized and big-size enterprises in Latin America. And that is how I am coming here to this session with this warm introduction you have given. Thank you for that. And it's different than a career, in my case, which has been spent to cybersecurity issues from the beginning. The collaboration with the university, and during these last 20 years, I have been, let us say, leading some teams, cybersecurity in different practices within Latin America. So although all of this could sound very overwhelming, cybersecurity issues, words which can be very sophisticated, the idea of today is to do it as accessible as possible so that we have a common language through which we can understand a bit what cybersecurity is about and us as an enterprise, in which aspects is this touching us as keeping in mind that cybersecurity is a very important aspect from any as. So here I am. I want to go to so we can start. Okay, so this is the first slide. Perfect. So as I was saying, the idea for today's session is to understand a bit what cybersecurity is, which sometimes sounds as a concept which is very sophisticated and sometimes very far away from our reality. But truly, it is very close to any enterprise or company, be it the big corporations, or the small and medium-sized enterprises, which is what we are going to focus on today. And we call these SME, small and medium enterprises. And I would like to start with a recent change, which is known to all of us, and are the consequences of the pandemic of COVID-19, which, as I said, everyone has been close to that, and it has shifted the way in which the SMEs were getting close to their clients, to their customers, because many were affected and were obliged to close due to the confinement which came along with the pandemic. And facing this perspective of having an economic consequence within the business and the possibility, let's say, of being bankrupt, many of them reinvented themselves and started to take the business from the physical ambit, only presential to the digital space. And when I say the digital space, I mean that they started basically to publish their products or services on the internet. So people were confined at home could access these products and services through the internet to do some online shopping. So here we have some numbers, which I think are very important to mention. So it's 76% of the SMEs say that the pandemic pushed them to become more digital. So when they realize that this risk and this limitation, which was present with the confinement, they evolved and shifted this reality towards becoming an opportunity, a possibility to promote themselves in a more digital. And 82% of those are shifting the way in which they are sending and receiving payments nowadays. So they found out it's not only about offering or publishing what we name publish products and services through the internet, so the virtual customers can get to know them, but also offer the way to pay and to actually get these goods, and they can send a so not only within the cities or the countries, in domestic areas, but also even international scale. So this new reality had customers to also fasten the demand and the possibility to access this kind of things. So a real story is that my parents were elders, adults who didn't know how to buy through the internet are doing it now. They're doing it since 2020, since we had the first peaks of the pandemic, and now they have stayed there. Meaning they say, well, I don't have to go to the shop, I don't have to go to the bakery. I can do everything very easily from my cell phone. And that is an effect which has been passing in many customers and consumers throughout Latin America. So we see this greater dependency, the digital world, which has come to stay as an effect of the pandemic, but at the same time, it has a risk, fortunately. And it is that when we have an exposition to the digital world, which is not something just to publish our services, products on internet, be it through social media or an own website, etc., will make it to be an object and to be attractive for hackers and tricksters, for cyber delinquents, as we say within this area, because they have realized that attacking these SMEs, they can jump towards the bigger organizations, which the SMEs very often are giving service. They have found out that is the weakest link. And although we can say, oh, but I don't know, a shop or I'm a bakery or I'm a hairdresser salon, I shouldn't be attractive to any of these people, but we are, because not only our customers are citizen, common citizens, but very often when our micro or medium-sized enterprises start growing, they start delivering services to third parties, which have realized that it is a link they want to get into and be able to vulnerate other companies. So we always have to pay attention to this, even if I'm a small company, and there is an exponential increase of cyber delinquency. As I was saying, there are some terms which are a bit sophisticated and they're part of the cybersecurity, but we are going to be very plain with the words we use. So 50% of the small enterprises have experimented a cybernetic attack. I said that there are two kinds of companies in the world: those who say they have never suffered an attack, basically, and those who have suffered an attack and don't know it. But basically, all companies are exposed to a cyber attack. The difference is that very often we don't realize. And many of them have already identified, luckily, that have been victims of a cyber attack. So then a question arises. So how do I know if this level of exposition while we are present in internet, when we accept, for example, some payment methods such as credit cards through internet, how do I know if I have been vulnerated and there is compromised information? So that is the concept of awareness, which is an English word, and it could be translated as the level of consciousness which a company can have, especially its employees, could have regarding cybersecurity. We will approach that in a moment. So what is the current vision we have of the cybersecurity for these SMEs? We know they are attractive for the cyber delinquents. So how are they doing that? The panorama isn't as good as we are thinking, because many of the owners of these enterprises who need to go more into the digital world together with the pandemic and let's say of this landscape we are talking about, most of them don't feel ready to receive an attack, and they don't know how to start, and they say, okay, so I'm exposed to internet. Yes, I do business through internet, be it through social media, as I said, or a portal, a marketplace through where I am present. I also do transactions with instant messengers like WhatsApp and so on, e-message. How could I protect myself? Where should I start? It's difficult to answer this, and this is reflected in these ciphers. The owners of these SMEs don't have any plan for prevention for cyber attacks. They don't know what to do in the moment they are vulnerated. If at any moment they are victims, for example, of a software which is encrypting data in a station or on a desktop, a laptop. And once they have encrypted all this information to give the information back to the original owner, they ask for rescue. So they are kidnapping information. That's what a ransomware is. So that kind of cyber attacks are very common, and they are very, let's say, relevant within enterprise. And we don't know how to react when we are facing them, which is what this cipher is talking about. So 25% the owners of SMEs don't even know how to start with cybersecurity. What does it mean? Does it mean to have an anti-malware in your stations? Does it mean that I need to have a file that my internet provider services has created and said I had added it to my internet connection? Cybersecurity could mean that I cannot connect some USB sticks, for example, to the terminals of my working station. What does cybersecurity mean? Or even does it mean that there is a level of consciousness in people with whom I'm working within my entities, and they know that information is confidential, and dispositives we have given them are only exclusive for the use of working things. So many questions start to pop up, and all of them, they come together to around the subject of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a triad, a triangle, which has three sides, where I can say that one is technology, security and information. The second one are processes, how I manage data and information. And the third one are people, right? So how do I bring consciousness to people on the management of data and information through processes, supporting myself in technology? But let us be very careful. It doesn't mean to resume in 40 or 45 minutes the concepts of cybersecurity and what you should learn about cybersecurity. What I want to tell you about is about the tools which Mastercard can offer you so you can start this trip. And I say it's a trip or a journey because it's a dynamic shifting. It's something constant throughout time, which will be shifting because cybersecurity is shifting. Every time there are more sophisticated attacks, and we have a greater exposition to cyber internet and things we have more in the clouds. 10 years ago, no one had things in the clouds. And nowadays, you have a backup in your cloud. Everyone does it and buy these hard drives, external drives. But we say, why? If I have a subscription, I have everything on the cloud that will never fail, it will always be available. So that kind of things are shifting. I'm giving you some examples, and that's what has taken me to understand that cybersecurity the learning journey. And what I want to tell you about today is not this is what you need to know about cybersecurity because it's a very wide thing I cannot tell you about in this time, but I would rather like to give you the tools so you can start walking through the shifts. And the cipher I want to leave behind is that 25% of the SMEs have been declared in bankrupt after a cyber attack. So this 60% who don't know what to do is finally translated in a terrible effect within these enterprises. And they need to basically leave business as a result. So as we were saying, what would happen if together we could support closer the SMEs to protect themselves from the cybernetic attacks and risks? So that is what we want to tell you about today. More than ever today, it is essential that all SMEs have the support and solutions which are needed to protect and accelerate the digital world where they are present nowadays, where they have went in and which has been accelerating since the pandemic. And our mission as Mastercard is basically to connect you as owners of these small enterprises, micro and medium enterprises with the best practices of cybersecurity. That is what we want to deliver today. And for that, we have created something which is called the Center, Trust Center, Mastercard Trust Center. I will introduce it to you in a moment, but basically that is a portal, as a website, which has been created to give information, resources, and tools for free without any costs on cybersecurity. So they can help us educate ourselves to understand which are the resources we need, and lately also to see which are the tools we need depending on the level of exposition we have on the in order to have decrease of the risks around cybersecurity. And here, the risk of cyber attacks will always exist. An analogy I always use is that there is always a risk, inherent risk when you go drive. When you take your car to go from your house to your job, there is an inherent risk. And how can you mitigate it? You're doing, keeping it up, you're checking the brakes. Every time you get in the car, before you light the car, you put on your seatbelt and you try your car to have the airbags, protect yourself if there is if you crash. But even though you have all these technologies and you also have processes like putting on your seatbelt, your cybersecurity seatbelt, you have a consciousness that you have to drive in a responsible way as a person, you're conscious of that, and you know that that won't stop you from crashing your car and having an accident. It's the same thing that happens with cybersecurity. We're going from the physical security, which that could be like the car, you're driving the car, to simply jumping into the cyber world, which is basically internet, and which has associated risk because when you're in internet, it's like when you're out in the street, information is public and can be accessible. Of course, there are many technologies like airbags and seatbelts, like brakes in cars, can help you to prevent that people will come in, access this information. But what I want is to mitigate these risks because I can be the most educated one, putting on the seatbelt every time I go in, having the best bikes in my hands, in my car, and driving in a good speed. But if I don't stop where I'm told I should stop, I'm clearly going to have an accident. It's the same thing with the cybersecurity world. So going back to the center, this trust center of Mastercard, basically what we are proposing to have a place where we can allow the SMEs to protect themselves better against the cyber attack possibilities. What are we doing through this? Basically, we're doing two things. We're giving an easy access, centralized access for to access resources which can educate us to help the cybernetic ecosystem and small enterprises to be protected. So that is to educate people. And we know that the content which will be presented can be overwhelming if we don't keep in mind that there are different levels of knowledge and of relating, let's say, with different subjects, not only cyber subjects, but also cybersecurity. That is why we have developed 3 levels of experience in cybersecurity, where we are helping users to identify which level they are, and starting from there, take them by the hand and start walking journey along with them. We will show you in a moment what these 3 levels are about. Knowledge. But additionally, we need to focus not only on content which has been proposed by Mastercard, created, and the authors are our experts teams on Mastercards, but we also connect with parties and we give them the possibility to give the contents which are in other websites expert on this cybersecurity to be accessible through links within our portal. So we take you along to get to know other alliances, other organizations, which basically are focusing on delivering this kind of educational content. That is the Cyberness Institute and Global Cyber Alliance, organizations who are third parties with which we see a great synchrony with the content we want to give, and I will show you a bit in a moment. The personalized results for each level of cybersecurity. We also give different forums to attend better the preferences of all users, and the access is free for all small and medium enterprises in the world. Nowadays, in Latin America, we have content for the Caribbean in English, which is already available on the website. And in the coming days, I wanted to launch it today, to have today this possibility because it has been produced in Spanish and Portuguese, but it has been taking a bit more time than expected. So in the coming, not even weeks, I would really say next weekend, probably, we will launch the website with the content in Spanish and also in Portuguese, additionally to the one for the Caribbean, which is already in English within Latin America. Which are the benefits we're expecting to improve cybersecurity through a better conscious education on the cybernetic threats for you, to reduce the risks as a consequence and the financial losses related to cyber attacks. As I said, very often this could be catastrophic for the life of a company, and in the end of the day to strengthen the brand preference which we already have as a Mastercard with loyalty programs and worldwide cover and alliances with banks and with commerce of the consumer. So let us see a bit more detail. This trust center of Mastercard, which are the people who will identify yourself in those profiles. So you can go to this website after our talk to get to know more about this trust center, seeing where would you like to start your journey. The first one is learning the basics. And here is a declaration of a person as I am a beginner who feels overwhelmed. So basically, as a beginner, I understand a bit of what internet is. And when someone talks about cybersecurity, which is the associated security to all the e-commerce, I get lost. I'm in zero and I would like to start from zero. And that is a profile which is very common when traditionally we have a company presential after many years and you want to go into the digital world. That's why we have a profile which is called learning the basic, where you the basic concepts of cybersecurity are simplified, which will help you implement solutions in order to diminish all the anxiety. So I need a firewall or an antivirus or an access control, an authentication. So I will receive a message on my cell phone. All of those can be overwhelming, as I was saying. So that's why we have this profile to start from zero. There is another profile, which is the widening knowledge, and that would be basically a person who has a bit more of and would like to know a bit more from a long time and has a basic understanding of the basic concepts, not only of the cyber world, which is internet, I repeat, but also cyber security. He knows, for example, to give you an example, some understanding pills, they know that it is important to have a special software. They know that it is important to have a firewall which third parties to access your internet and so on. And they have a greater comprehension of what cybernetic world is, but he wants to learn how he can protect himself from third parties which can make him vulnerable. I want to know a bit more. I want to be prepared. And finally, we have another one, which could be also present in an SME, which is an expert, wants to be a step ahead of anything which could possibly happen. That's a profile we call to dominate security. And it has been basically for a high level of experience. And the person who said expert in security saying to be a step ahead with cybersecurity. These are the three profiles nowadays on our the Mastercard, the Trust Center of Mastercard. And I will leave for a moment the presentation and I will here this is a browser. I'm using Chrome, but you can use any you prefer. And here this site is caribbean.mastercard.com/en-car. So this is a site which is accessible through the Mastercard domain. Mastercard.com is the name in English. For now, as I was saying, it is only in English, but soon in the coming days, I am not lucky enough to tell you today it's going live English and Portuguese, but we will launch it in the coming weeks. So I'm using this invitation of Connect Americas to announce this publicly. And here you will find a bit ciphers, some more data, and depending on where you would like to start your journey, you will be able to click in one of these profiles wherever you feel identified, and with it, you will be able to start to go through the information. We will see simple things like the triad I was speaking about, why it's important to have technology, why we need to educate people, and to have processes very advanced things such as how to have threat intelligence. So it is a kind of a course, a class where you can slowly follow different information. And to give you a small taste of these third parties, which are our allies, and we have mentioned in the previous slides. This one is a Cyber Readiness Institute. When you start this journey, if you want to widen some more information, you can click on Know More here, and it will send you to this kind of content, which is also in English, in Portuguese, and in Spanish. It is simply a matter of pointing here, choosing which is the language you would like and here you can see some content, more advanced content regarding a specific topic. In this case, they are for principal emphasis on topics I believe could be the main thing of mitigation and protection, as I was saying before, with cybersecurity issues. So these four main subjects I would like to leave today, so you keep it in mind when we are talking about cybersecurity. The first one is having strong passwords. All right. 63% of vulnerability of data is because of passwords which are stolen. When I repeat the same one, or I have ABC123 or my name and the year, Henry 2022, that kind of thing is the one which is allowing SMEs to be vulnerable. Software updates, I need to have updated not only my anti-wall or operation system, not only my desktop, but also my cell phone. Especially this weekend, there was a great uh, movement because in iOS, the iPhone operational system, there was a vulnerability and there was a batch of immediate actualization. So I actualized all my cell phones this weekend. This is a recommendation to do it. The third one is the phishing awareness. These emails we receive or this SMS you receive from an unknown number and we are not prepared, click on it and it will send you that a malware will execute or run a program which will make them take power over our PC and access our information and so on. So we need to be very careful of phishing. 90%, 91% of cyber attacks nowadays start with phishing. So with an email, which has link and they present something, with a message full of fantasy in a subject, let's say, like an illegitimate subject, which catches our attention, we click on it, and then we are caught. And the last one, which isn't as common, but it's still a vector of vulneration, is USB use, which is not as used now because you can use everything the drive, the cloud, but nowadays still there is a lot of use of the US basics. So 27% of the malware infections come from that. So these kind of things are the ones you could find with this cyber readiness, and this could give you some basic information, a parting point where they're telling you a logical story of not only this on a technology level, but also of processes and persons, as I was saying, within your end. Here is another one, which is the Global Cyber Alliance, which is also very interesting. You also have the possibility to select language. It is in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese. Here I've chosen Spanish presentation, but basically I can have a cybersecurity toolkit. So I'm even a step ahead where I can recommend you free tools so you can use them and that this might help you as a shield yourselves so you can mitigate the risks when we speak of cybersecurity. This is a very interesting website which is going ahead to execute some technology to mitigate these risks. So I'm going back to the presentation. I wanted to go out also to call your attention on this trust center. I have here a snapshot or a picture, a screenshot of what the Mastercard Trust Center is, and I will send it over to you. I already showed you the site. And in the end of the day, what is the message we want to give you? We are here to give you vital protection against firewalls, so you won't be victims of cybersecurity attacks and the losses that this could bring along. So we can increase your incomes and the preference, the brand preference together with you, a loyalty, basically, a future loyalty. In the end of the day, if you go through these portals, through these profiles, and you start to consume this content, you will have a greater on cyber threats. This really comes from the strengthening of practices and processes which are within cybersecurity company. And as cybersecurity, we are promising you that you will have not only a greater support through Mastercard, but also you will have additional incomes when you offer the solutions which are giving trust to the consumers that you are protected and you are accessing a portal in a trusting way. You will have basically the trust to go into the portals and services where you will be precisely who feels protected. Why us? Why Mastercard? Let's say that it's because a question we ask ourselves and we answer in the following way. Because we feel that we have a responsibility being a technology for payment solutions to give these kinds of advice, resources, and personalized tools to the players, so important players of economies on a worldwide scale. And that is very important because 70% of the incomes of the pay best, the countries, the PIBs of countries don't come from big organizations pulling most of economies, domestic economies on a worldwide scale. So because of the experience we have, because of the presence we have worldwide, is what we want to be reflected in portals, as I was mentioning in the Trust Center. And now to end, the invitation is to come together, let us join each other to protect ourselves from the cybernetic risks, to walk through this path. We won't be experts from one day to the other. We won't mitigate the risks with a magic stick or with only one technology, but it is a whole level of education which we need to start to bring into our knowledge, to walk, to read and understand. And as Mastercards, we have wanting to make this accessible. It will be a journey you will be able to understand for people who aren't technicians, for people whose business it will be only from the academic world. So we will be basically be able to connect the owners of the small enterprises with security subjects and the best practices. So in the end of the day, we all are winning within the digital ecosystem of payments such as I will stop here now. And Danny and team, maybe there's something you want to tell me about some comments or questions within the audience.
Gracias, Henry.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Sí, tenemos algunas
Yes, we
preguntas.
do have some
Nos gustaría
questions
saber
which
si
we really
Zulma
would
tiene
like
las
to go
mismas
through.
preguntas.
Sulma is asking two very important
La
questions.
primera
The
es si
first one
tenemos
is if I have
varias cuentas
my
en Google
accounts in Google
y la
and the
información
information
de
on Google
nuestro
Drive,
Drive
of her enterprise is saving her from cyber attacks, or is it a bad practice? Nowadays, I would say that it's basically impossible for any company to subsist without the use of cloud. You are using a very known provider, which is Google, to store your information in the cloud. Luckily, this kind of players of cloud have very good security practices, and they can guarantee not only the availability, but also the integrity and the confidence of information, confidentiality. So here, the advice that I can give you is keep implementing the good practices you can find in this content I was mentioning in this trust center of Mastercard. Because in the end of the day, it could be that the access to the Google Drive won't be vulnerated through an attack, uh, a technological attack, but it can be vulnerated because you were not careful with your password, or you wrote it on a piece of paper and you left it on a post-it on your screen. There is no security which will help you there. So basically, we do need to use technology, in your case, Google Drive, but we need to do it in a way which is intelligent in terms of cybersecurity. In the US, they talk about cybersecurity savvy, like being conscious of the minimal cybersecurity conditions, and how can I as a person behave. And that's when we have the analogy of the car. You have a good car, you told me I have a Google car. That's a known maker. Probably they will work very good. The access control will work good. So but you still have to be careful. You cannot drive when the stoplight is red. You need to drive following the rules of speed and so on. It's the same to answer your question on Google Drive. And you had another one, right? Yes, the second question Soma asked is, which are the free tools we can find to use in cybersecurity? I think this is what we would mean with the best different systems. Yes, there are different tools which are free. I will give you some examples. These are pointed globally. Cybersecurity Alliance, which is the one which is going straight forward to the tools, which is a link which is bringing you out of our site as such, but you arrive to the third one, which is an ally we have, and they will tell you things such as Microsoft Defender, which is, for example, by default with the operational system of Microsoft for this. And many people don't activate it, and it is by default included. So Microsoft Defender helps you, for example, without any to have a minimal protection against events of malware, to protect against, let's say, worm or a virus. I didn't want to work and talk about these words, which can sound a bit sophisticated, to talk about a program which could affect you. But these kind of tools are available and many people don't know it or use it. Other kind of things, for example, which can be used and which are free are automatic actualizations, updates from this operational systems. Many people don't know that you can do that automatically and they don't activate it. And that also has a cost because it is within what you're paying for the hardware. For example, when you pay for an iPhone, as I was telling you about this weekend, the cost of the software is present with the cost of the phone itself, and the support is also included. So you have right to the actualizations, the updates of the operational system without having to pay anything else. And many people without without the need of paying anything else, because they already have paid with the original acquisition. They aren't taking any profit of this, and they never update their cell phones. So these kind of things you can find as recommendations of tools which have no cost. There are many others, like the ones which help us verify without information from your company whether it has been published in the dark web for the best buyer, which is the internet which is being used. The dark web could be the translation, which is used to commercialize illegally the information, substances, products. So the company for your customers, the database of your customers is there. There are also some solutions, specific solutions, which will help you to track these kind of things of any cost. So I'm giving you
Fantástico. Aquí dos personas, Ginette y
two
Cian,
people, Jeanette and Cian, are
clave que es
a key
cada
question.
cuánto hay que cambiar las claves.
How often do you need
Las
to
contraseñas de
change
correo,
your
los datos
passwords, your
determinados,
emails? How often do you advise us for the email or the cards, for example, thinking how to be safe? So I will complement the answer with an answer for the previous question. You have a Google Password Manager, which is with a web browser with Chrome, for example. Well, I remember passwords of emails when I go into Gmail, for example. I have to put it every time I go in. So this is easing a lot the life for us. It is a free tool and so on. But your question, how often should I change? This is never asking me to change. It is a great question, and it's part of the triad, which has to do with processes. So it is a process normally for a company which is managing confidential information. At least every 6 months, you should shift password. Companies using like medical registers or sensitive information, they even have policies which are stronger because they are regulated. But usually I make reference 3 to 6 months the most, depending on whether there is a compromise and engagement. For example, the password manager has that alert. They say a password you already used for a third time. They are monitoring as Google this activity. You use it, for example, to be present in different supermarkets. So we have a thing in our mind, which is very easy. I use the same password for many different things. I cannot have a password for everything, which is asking me to create one world. So when this supermarket has engaged, there is a cybersecurity issue. We'll find a message saying there is this supermarket which is vulnerable and other people who have passwords there. If you have used this password in other accounts, change them immediately. So as I say, it's not only for a frequency, but also whenever there is an engagement, you need to take actions.
Excelente, sí, esa es una de las dudas más recurrentes. De hecho, Elizabeth, muy
That is one of the most present doubts. In
esta
fact,
pregunta.
Elizabeth is
Entonces,
asking further
si en su empresa
regarding
se manejan un promedio de
with the
100
same subject.
contraseñas
So
o
if
múltiples
within our enterprise we have around 100
¿dónde
passwords,
tendríamos
it
que
is
tenerlas
impossible to remember
comprometidas?
them.
Aquí creo que
How do you
comparto
suggest us to
responsabilidad
keep them or to have the same?
con la respuesta
And I think
anterior,
this is a bit what you were answering
pero
with
esta
the
segunda
previous
pregunta es,
answer.
¿usted sugiere
But the
mantener
second
una
question is, do you
constante de
suggest to have a
contraseñas
constant
o tenerlas
passwords
variadas mejor?
or vary them?
Sugerencia de fechas de cambio cuando ya llevo
Any
por lo menos 2 días, cuando
suggestion
llevo
on
por lo menos dos
shifting
días
the
con ella.
password
Es un
when
poco
it takes
ya
around 2 days to shift
y
the
repetido de lo
password?
anterior, pero
It
es
is
un
a bit a
manejo real.
repetitive thing with the previous questions, but it is a vital. It is vital. And as I was saying, all of this content, I know we all want to do the main thing of our companies and to focus Am I making a bakery? I want to make bread. I know, but we do need to read a bit and to prepare ourselves a bit. Like this trust center is very accessible, and you can find this kind of information to answer these questions. But when I have so many passwords and I have so many apps, we recommend to have a solution like the Google Password Manager, but there are many other in the market. You basically have a, a virtual place where all the information is encrypted very strongly. And I have a master password, very, very strong one, which is demanded by the application. It cannot be just a word. It has to be with numeric characters, at least 12 characters. And from there on, you can say, oh, this is my password. And when you go into that place, you have all the passwords, all these vaults, so you can have access to all your passwords without having to read them. So we suggest you to have this kind of vaults, but nevertheless, once again, if there is a vulneration in one of those apps where you're using this app, it is advisable to take action immediately.
Clarísimo. Bueno,
It's
tenemos aquí
very
unas
clear. We
preguntas
have last two
iniciando el
questions,
nuevo
one from Cyan
capítulo
Coffee,
donde
who
dice,
says,
donde nos
are
pregunta si
the
los certificados SSL
SSL
en las
certificates
páginas web son
on
suficientes.
websites enough?
Y una última
And another
que es
last
súper directa
question,
a
which is
todos los
very
usuarios,
general, but it's useful for
independientemente de si tienen
everyone,
empresa o no.
even if you do or don't
¿Qué
have an
beneficios puede
enterprise.
significar que un correo
How
electrónico
can I
es
know
un
if
virus?
an email is a virus? Those are very interesting questions. I'll start with the SSL. So the SSL is assuring you the integrity of the information within, say, web browser, the browser you're using, and the server, which is on the other side, which is replying, let's say, whatever you were doing. You're clicking here or there. So there is a tunnel of encryption between your station, laptop, desktop, between that browser and the server. Nowhere in between can listen or know what you're communicating. They're not seeing if you are sending a password or uploading some information or downloading anything. They can't see it because it's an encrypted tunnel. It's the only thing which this SSL is can guarantee you with this lock we see. And what we see very often is the navigation that no one will listen in between. But we need to protect ourselves with the anti-malware in station. Very often, through these encrypted tunnels, also malwares are traveling, worms. There are many, many cases where, although we do have that tunnel, programs are traveling which engage your information from the server side or the station which is consuming the information. So you start noticing that it is a compendium of things. It's not only about, if I have a certificate SSL, it means that everything is safe. No, you need to pay attention. Oh, but I also have to be careful to have an anti-malware updated in my station, an updated software, because there could be a vulneration. I need to have a web browser in their last versions. I need to know it's an HTTPS. So, and check the lock is present. So that means it's SSL. So if, as you see, there are different things, like I was saying about the car before, you need to have a seat belt, you need to have an airbag, a brake system, and so on. So these things can help me to take the car and have a quiet life. And we're just driving and we're not thinking, oh, today I'm going to have an accident. It's the same thing happening with cybersecurity. When you have all these variables, you don't even realize your life continues and you do whatever. The other question was, help me, Daniela,
¿Qué
with the
indicios
emails. How can you know? That is a very difficult question. And I would say it's the first security barrier avoid phishing are people. Uh, Many fabricants in the world have tried have tried to do intelligence technology to develop intelligence codes to detect the phishing, but definitely it's very difficult because cyber delinquents are very intelligent and they do things very well done, and it's very difficult to find a difference with the legitimate content. So we as people need to filter, and that's how we see that we need to understand more how a machine can understand with its artificial intelligence. A person can do much more than a machine or a software. So what do I example? Not long ago, I received an email. I thought it was very interesting. I received an email which said that through a search engine for employment, an ex-boss of mine had recommended for a position. So they had the information of an ex-boss from through LinkedIn. Maybe they saw my positions and they could see who was my boss at the time. And they sent me an email with an address which really seemed like LinkedIn. It wasn't, but it was something like these employment engines, and it was actually fake. It didn't exist with the name of my ex-boss. So something really advanced. I was surprised. I said, wow, this is so advanced. They have sent me here, but this doesn't sound good. So I went to a browser and I said, I'm going to see whether this site really exists. And that's how I found out it was a phishing because the website didn't exist. And when I put my, I see that the link showing, bringing me to a different URL, which is not the one described, but it's the one from the search. I said, wow, this is a very sophisticated phishing. They really took the time to get some data and send it to me. So who made the filter? Henry Perez. But we all receive these sophisticated phishing emails. We have other many more very simple ones, like you have just $1,000. If you want to access this, click here. Nothing is as good to be true to happen this way. So I would say these cases are common sense. And others, I could talk for hours about cases we have seen. Phishing is another thing. Voicemail or smishing is also called, which is through SMS. They send you and they're telling you they're giving the injection for your next vaccine is available now. Click here on this. Many people receive this kind of email when you were in this subject of vaccines. With the first vaccines, it was a smishing through SMS, not even an email. And people unaware were clicking on this kind of links, and it was truly a fake portal where you would put your data, and they started to take access confidential information. So people are the only ones who can do this filter in a very effective way. How can we educate them? You will see shortly that we do have a specific chapter for phishing, and we're telling how to educate people, how to have educational campaigns and saying, for example, this email is phishing. We could develop this kind of consciousness so the people will say themselves, this sounds like a phishing. I'm not gonna click on this link, or this is a smishing. I'm not gonna click and be conscious because we don't have the technology yet, which is infallible and which will show us all the emails which are a risk. Maybe it was a long answer. I took a longer time, but I wanted to go into details. No, it's
ejemplo,
key
esta otra
actually
pregunta
there.
que había de
You
que
answered another
los
question, which was
trabajos
there from Lorena
de
Lascan, who was
social,
saying
que se está
about the social
mencionando
engineering, which
ese
is this
ataque, es
spying before
exactamente lo que
sending an
está
attack.
mencionando,
That's exactly what
digamos,
Henry was
recoger esta
mentioning,
información antes
collecting this
de que
information
todas las
before
campañas que iban a
they
hacer
attack with
con el
vaccines, for
momento que
example,
estábamos
which
viviendo.
were going along with the
Entonces,
moment
buenísimo
we were
porque de
living.
verdad
So it is
resolviste
great because you are answering
muchas de las dudas que
truly
en ese ejemplo
many of the
dejaste.
doubts we
Creo que
had
podríamos
on the
cerrar
subject. I think we could
esta
close
pregunta que me
now
parece
with
también
this
buena en
question,
caso de
which
que
I
uno
think
hizo
if
todo
in
lo que
case you
dijo
did
y
everything you could
aún
do to
así fue
prevent
víctima de
and
esta
still you
situación,
were victim
entonces,
of one of
¿a
those
dónde puede uno
situations,
recurrir en ese caso de que
who
una
can you
persona
go to
sea víctima
if you
de
are a
ataque,
victim
de
of a
que
cyber
ya
attack
diste clic en el
and you
link,
already
de que
clicked on the
ya
link,
te diste cuenta del ataque,
you
de que
already
ya
realize it's an attack. So what can we do? Wow, this is a question which has a lot to say. I would say it is the event we don't want to get to. It's the car crash. Okay, I didn't stop sign. I didn't see I should stop. I went on and I crashed. Okay, to go on with the analogy of the car. So who's going to give me first aid, paramedic, to which hospital am I going to be taken, and so on? The main answer is to have a plan. If we know we are a certain place of the city, we know where we can be brought to and which insurance we have, which will cover us and protect us in that case. In this case, there are several things which are protecting us in a event of vulneration. I'm going to give few examples. One, to have backup the information. Many people nowadays, if the information is not available because it has been encrypted, because you've been a victim of some attack, or the drive was accessed and the password was shifted, very often we don't have a backup of the information. We don't know how to continue with our daily life, let's say, because we don't have that possibility of having the information accessible in another way. So this is great mitigator of risk, let's say, whenever it has been vulnerable. There is another one, let's say, which is rising now, and it's called cyber insurance. So those are cybernetic insurances. We all have an insurance, let's say, for if we have a car accident or those kind of situations, but no one has an insurance if you're vulnerable and the information, let's say, or the customers I used to have to protect now exposed. So that is also present in the dark web. So since you have an indemnization and coverage in that financial specifically, so many companies like IG and others are offering this kind of cyber insurance. That kind of thing also are told within the journey. There are companies who are taking the hand to people who have been vulnerable and helping to get along the vulneration scenario to avoid repetition. These are foreign companies who are saying, okay, so what happened? We're going to analyze which was the attack vector, what did they take, are there more things engaged? And once we have that information all together, I can define a scenario of non-repetition. If I need a technology which will help us to prevent further attacks, what kind of things do we need, teams, and so on. And from there on, they will give you a plan and they will help you to have this kind of thing. So people are doing this. I gave you some examples. Uh, I can proactively also make some backups. or I can proactively also buy an insurance. So there is a compendium of things you could do in the moment you're vulnerable.
Fantástico, Henry.
Fantastic,
Toda la
Henry.
información que nos
I
compartiste
think
el
that
día de
all the
hoy
information you've
de
shared
forma
today
efectiva para las
is very
empresas.
key for
Yo
the
a título
enterprises.
de mensaje final, porque
And as a
entiendo que
final
mucha
message,
gente
because I
sabe
believe this is
que la
very
ciberseguridad
really is that
lejos de ser
cybersecurity isn't
un gasto
something
súper grande
which
en las
is
empresas,
a
una
great
inversión gigante. Las
inversion of
pymes
money.
desde
The
sus inicios,
SMEs
desde tener
from
tres
the
personas
beginning,
conectadas
since you have 3 people
y pasando
connected
información en línea,
and keeping information
saben
online,
cómo
should
protegerse, cómo
know how
prevenir.
to protect
Las
themselves, how
prácticas,
to prevent
digamos, de las
practices
personas tienen
of
mucho que ver con la
people
ciberseguridad. Yo creo que
so
ese
they
es
have
de los
cybersecurity
mensajes más
issues. I
importantes.
think
No
that is
sé
one of the most
para otras
important
empresas
messages.
más
Sometimes we
grandes,
believe it's something for
pero
bigger
yo creo que
enterprises,
el
but
mensaje de
no,
hoy
I
es
really believe
desde
that
que
the
estamos
message today is
naciendo
that
tenemos
from
que
the
estar
moment we're
pensando
born,
en cómo
enterprises have to
protegernos de
think
las
of how
amenazas,
to
cómo
protect
guardar nuestra
ourselves from
información
cyber
en
attacks and how to keep
nube.
our data in the
Entonces,
most pure possible.
muchísimas gracias,
So
Henry.
thank you
Gracias
very
por
much,
compartir el
Henry,
día de
for
hoy.
being with us
Muchísimas gracias de
today.
nuevo por
Thank
compartir
you
todo
very
tu
much once
conocimiento
again for
con
sharing
nuestra
all your
audiencia
knowledge
necesaria
with
para
our
las Conecta Américas.
Connect
Por
America's
supuesto,
Women
gracias a
Network.
Mastercard
Of
que hizo
course, thank you to
posible esta
Mastercard
transmisión del
who
día
made
de
this
hoy.
session
Gracias a las casi
today.
100
Thank
personas,
you to the
100
almost
empresarias que estuvieron
100
conectadas
entrepreneurs
con
who tuned
nosotras
in with us
el día de hoy.
today.
Y por correo electrónico, anuncios
And through your
parroquiales, por
email, we
correo
will send you
electrónico
some
tenemos el de
data. We
los
will
próximos
send
eventos
you
que tengamos
next
disponibles la
events,
próxima semana.
invitations
Tenemos
for next week.
un webinar de
We
este
have a webinar
apoyado por
similar to this
Microsoft.
one, which is supported by
La grabación de
Microsoft.
este evento
The
la
recording
vamos
of this
a
event
publicar en el
will be
canal de YouTube de
published
Conecta
through
Américas
the
en
YouTube
nuestra plataforma, como
channel
todos
of
nuestros
Connect
eventos.
Americas and also on the platform like all
Y
our
por
events.
correo electrónico también
And through
estaremos
email,
enviando
we
de
will
manera
also be
alojada
sending you
para que la
where
puedan
this
usar
recording will
si
be
quieren
stored so you
perder
can check
alguna
it once
información,
again.
si se
If you
perdieron
lost some
algún
information
link,
or a
ahí lo
link,
pueden encontrar.
you can find it there once again.
Muchísimas gracias,
Thank
feliz
you very
jueves
much.
y
Happy
fin de semana
Tuesday.
para
Happy
todos.
beginning of the
Muchas
week.
gracias. Gracias a
Thank you
todos.
very
Hasta la
much.
próxima.
Thank you to
Hasta
everyone.
luego.
See you next time.